Now that we know the VCG mechanism to certain detail, it's time to discuss about an application domain. And one of the very prominent application domain of auctions in general is internet advertising. So what is it as opposed to the traditional mode of advertising? So for instance, advertising on newspapers, on boards, on billboards, etc. So the major advantage of internet advertising is that you can actually get a lot of other information which is not possible to get in the traditional mode of advertisement. You can possibly say that the readership of a particular newspaper was so much, but you are never certain whether that individual, the person who bought this newspaper, actually watched this ad or not. So those kind of measurements are not possible to do, while on internet it is clearly possible to do. So here are some of the reasons for the success of the internet advertising. So you can actually gather a lot of user data. The advertiser, for instance, can get a lot of user data and design its targeted products depending on the preferences of a user, which kind of objects can be presented to him or her. The second important reason is that you can take measurable actions. One can classify these buyers into several categories and measure the interest, and then suggest them appropriate products, which increases the chances of them buying these objects. And of course, what is not possible in the traditional mode is this very quick execution of the whole bidding process, or the whole auctioning process. It can be real-time bidding. So in traditional modes, there would be a kind of a fixed price for an advertisement, or even if there is an auction going on, that will take many days to submit the bids, to running the auction and finally allocating the goods. But in internet advertising, what happens is that whenever someone, let's say, types in a particular set of keywords, the auction is run on the fly and the decisions are taken. So this is clearly not possible in the traditional form of advertising. And these are some of the reasons why internet advertising has become very popular, and it is widely used in all forms of social media, web pages, and so on. So what are the different types of ads that we see on the internet? So we'll mention three. That there are possibly more forms of advertisements, but this major three chunks are, the first one is the sponsored search ad. So this applies to the search engines. The advertisers actually bid on the keywords that has been entered by the users during a search, and because those keywords are actually expressing the intent of the user to search, they can be shown the ads which are curated for those keywords, and that is what is called the sponsored search ad. The second kind of ad is the contextual ad, and this happens when you, let's say, post a message on Facebook, or send an email on certain platforms. It actually shows you the ad based on the content of your post, or of your email. So these are called contextual ads. And the third one is the classical form of advertisement, just display ads. So maybe you are given a particular banner in a website, or even banner ads in newspapers, the online mode of the newspapers. Those are based only on, they are typically charged on a fixed price, and they do not actually collect this amount of data, that who has actually observed this ad or not. Now, typically internet advertising is quite complex, and it might be quite overwhelming for smaller businesses to put ads on the internet. And for that, there are some assistive technologies, which is known as the ad exchanges. So several organizations own this kind of ad exchanges. It could be completely independent. This is supposed to be completely independent, both from the publisher, the website or the search engine who is actually publishing those ads into their content, and the advertiser who is actually placing those the ads, who are the clients in this system. The ad exchange job is to process the plan that the publisher has actually mentioned. So in an ad exchange, the publisher can actually design what kind of advertisement policy that they are going to do, and the advertisers also can come and place their bids according to the publisher's policy. And the job of ad exchange is to run this auction on the fly, because this is internet advertising. It has to be done on the fly in an automated manner. This has to be done via some larger infrastructure, which is the ad exchange. The advantage of using an ad exchange is that now the small businesses, without worrying about what the protocol is, or without knowing what the mechanism is actually doing, they can actually trust these ad exchanges and customize their ads based on the options that is given in the ad exchange. So this is, you can think of as a user-friendly software system which actually hides all the nitty-gritty details of the advertisements from the point of view of the advertiser. So in this context, we are going to discuss the setting of position auctions. So this is the position auction, as the name suggests. It auctions the positions in a search engine, or in a social media page, or even in a newspaper website. So it is actually selling multiple ad positions on a page. The examples that, as we have said, that in the search engine, if you are placing your ads, there could be multiple positions in the search engine page, which will give a kind of a differentiated treatment depending on their positions. Even in newspapers, you can think of the ads which are coming on the first page or the last page and the inner pages. They could be treated differently. Or even in social media page, you can think of in a specific user's feed, if the ads show up on the beginning, that has a larger visibility compared to the ads which are being shown later, right? So that all these things are different positions, and therefore the auctions are run for different positions. So let's say we have n advertisers and m slots, and we are also going to assume that the number of slots is larger than the number of advertisers. So all that matters in this abstract model is how you rank them, in which order you rank these n advertisers. There are sufficient number of slots. And we are also going to assume that the first position in this slot is the best position, so that everybody has possibly a higher value when they are allocated to that slot, and they have the worst value when their position is the last, and it falls off monotonically. So let us also discuss about how this position auctions has actually evolved with time. So in the very early days, the position auctions were ordered based on this bid per impression. So it was very similar to the ads on newspapers or billboards, because these auctions were actually charging them just for showing the ad. So that was one of the examples. So it means that the whole risk is on the advertiser. So the publisher is also always going to charge a fixed amount just for showing the ad, and this is, I think, the model still followed in the newspaper ads. So this is what is known as the bid per impression. So in the internet also, you are doing the same. Just for showing your ad, you charge a certain amount of money. So why we call that the risk is solely on the advertiser? Because the advertiser has no way of ensuring that a user has actually observed that ad or not, or whether the ad is actually relevant or not. So those kind of measurable actions the advertiser cannot actually decide, or cannot actually measure, but it still pays the amount of money just for showing that ad. Now the next set of position auctions were the bids on clicks. So this is a major change in the mode of the advertisements, which was actually brought about by the search engine and the fact that it is on the internet, you can actually measure whether that particular ad has been clicked or not. And that was the pay per click model, in which the users or the advertiser do not pay until the ad has been clicked. So this means that the risk is also shared by the publisher. So the publisher also takes responsibility if the ad is being clicked or not. So in some sense, if your ad is not clicked, you are not going to get charged. So therefore that is a much less risk for the advertiser than the bid per impression situation. Now it is also an important problem how the publisher ranks these ads. So the initial idea was to rank just by the bids. So ask every advertiser how much they are willing to bid if their advertisement has been clicked. That is the bid for them for every click, and the ranking is based on that bid. Now what the advertiser can immediately do is, if they can strategize. They can show an ad in a non-contextual places where the users are very less likely to click on it. So in that sense, the advertiser will not pay anything to the publisher, but their impression is actually shown. So even if you see a non-contextual ad, you possibly have an impression, but you don't click, and therefore they don't pay anything. So this is actually harmful for the publisher, because they earn nothing, even though they are wasting those slots which could have been allocated to a more contextual ad, which could have been clicked, and therefore the publisher could have earned money. So this model of bidding per click was not really very successful. Then came the model of ranking this advertiser based on the product of the probability of click. So this is important, and this probability of the click has to be measured in some way, and their bid value. So earlier it was only based on the bid value, but now it is a product of the probability of a click. So if it turns out that someone is placing an ad in a non-contextual places, the probability of click, if it is measured correctly, will be very low, and therefore they will not be shown, because the probability times the bid value, even though the bid was higher, this product was low, and therefore that will not be shown in the top of their page. So this probability of click is what is known in the literature as the click-through rate, or CTR for short. And therefore this approach of ranking advertisers based on the product of the probability of click and the bid value, you can think of this as the rank by the expected revenue. So if the ad is clicked, then they pay this bid value. What is the expected revenue there? So that is exactly the way this new approach is trying to rank these advertisers. Now we are going to address this problem a little more formally in the way that we have discussed in the context of our mechanism design problem, and therefore we are going to make some simplifying assumptions, some abstraction of this problem. So note that what we are going to discuss in this module or in the next module is essentially an abstract idea behind this internet advertising. The real auctions, the auctions that are implemented in practice, might be different from this explanation or this description of the auction, the position auction that we discuss here. Sometimes maybe it is non-trivial difference, but we are not going to discuss about how the auction is run, for instance, in Facebook or on Twitter. These are more like an abstract view of how the position auctions can be run. So what are the assumptions that we are going to make here? So we are going to make this assumption for the advertisers' values. So we are going to assume that the clicks are going to generate the value for the advertiser. So when someone clicks and it goes to their web page, the advertiser's web page, then only the advertisers get some amount of value. Of course, they get certain other kind of value for just showing the impression, but just for the impression we are just ignoring that part. We are going to only consider the values that they get when the user actually lands up in their web page. And the second assumption is that we are going to assume that the value for a click is going to be equal, no matter whatever position their ads were shown. Whenever someone is clicking, the advertiser gets the same value for that. Now, whether the ad will be clicked or not, that only depends on the position. So that the position effect of the advertiser is only affecting their chance of getting a click. Conditioned on the fact that it has been clicked, the values are going to be the same for all such clicks. Now, what are the implications of these two assumptions? It helps us to decouple the value effect and the position effect. So as we said, that there is a value effect when someone clicks and lands up in the advertiser's web page, and there is another effect for the position, which also actually decides how much is the probability of getting a click. So from the point of view of agent I, the expected value when her ad is being shown at the position J in this all possible set of slots, we're going to denote that with Vij, and this is a product of two terms. As we said, the probability of getting a click if I's ad is shown at position J, and this Vi is the value of a click, the assumption that we have made. This is fixed irrespective of which slot they have been shown, but this CTR, or the click-through rate, I comma J, essentially depends both on the user, maybe based on what kind of content they are posting in those ads, and also their rank. So very likely that if your ad is shown at the bottom of the page, it's and the probability of getting that click is very low. So that is being reflected by the CTR IJ. Now, because this is a probability, this lives in this space 0 to 1. This is within the interval 0 to 1. And we can also further decompose into two independent components. So one is the quality component, and this depends solely on the ad itself. So if it is the ith ad, then depending on how is the content or what this ad is about, and there could be one component into this probability. The other component is the position component. So this is dependent on in which position this ad was shown. So CTR IJ is essentially a product of these two things. So this is also a simplifying assumption, just to make sure that you can decouple the quality effect and the position effect, right? Now, putting them back together, we can actually have a factor which is only dependent on J, that is the position, and the rest of the factors are actually dependent on the user itself. This is the quality of the ad, and this is the value associated with that ad. Quite naturally, it is fair to assume that the position effect, these PJs, are always decreasing with that position. So if you are at position J plus 1, the position effect, the probability of getting a click, is smaller than if you are at position J. Now you can see that in the context of mechanism design, what is the private information in this whole process? The VI, the valuation that a specific bidder has, a specific advertiser has, is the private information. Rest of the things can actually be measured. So rho PJ, that is the position effect, is clearly measurable. Rho I, if that agent has also placed ads in the past, you can also measure it. And these two things can be completely measurable. Search engines essentially estimate this rho of I, that is a quality effect of an ad, and let's say we are going to call that as rho I hat. Now what happens is that these bidders, they bid the value of BI, that is essentially so they have this value which is the private information. What they actually bid is BI, and then the ads are being shown in the order that is decreasing in the order of this rho I hat times BI. So this is the estimated position, the estimated quality of that ad multiplied by whatever they have bid.